The Mishpatim. Okay, so what is it that we're not understanding? Okay, what is it that we're missing? Why this whole teaching, this whole 4 hours or whatever it's been, is to get to this crux of the matter. To understand, we've got to go back to Sinai once again, where it is that the church are offered this covenant betrothal to the king to be this holy nation and royal priesthood. And we say everything it is that you say we will do, and the terms and the conditions are given to say that yes, Adonai is going to come, he's going to speak to us, and that whole thing of him speaking is that we believe Moses forever, right? Adonai comes with great pomp, with such spectacular entrance that we believe we're going to die if we continue to hear him speak. And the way that the text speaks, it almost seems as if we know that if Adonai speaks to human beings, they do die. And we are shocked to say that we haven't died, right? And then we say, just as Adonai had planned, Moses, please, you speak to him. Everything it is that he tells you, we will obey. So the 10 words, right? It's not, in the text, it's not called the 10 commandments. It's the 10 words. It's like the 10 chapter headings of the law, of the Torah. All the other laws can fit into those 10. So the way it is that the law works is that it says that in the beginning was the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. So the Word is Elohim, okay? So Yehovah Echad, at the top, unity, everything. The everything splits into the 2 great commandments. The first one is, love Yehovah with all your heart, soul, and strength. The next commandment is, love your neighbor as yourself. Right? Those 2 split into the 10 words, and then the 10 words split into the 613 or whatever amount of commandments are written in the Torah. Okay? So when Adonai speaks the 10 words at Sinai, the 10 words are just headings. Right? They're not the covenant in itself, it's the outline. So anyway, so Adonai speaks the outline, the most important things. He's giving the chapter headings or whatever, chapter names. And then, would you agree with me that the things which it is that he speaks right after he's spoken the 10 words are going to be the next important things in the list of things which it is that we need to understand about the covenant? Right? This is obvious. Okay, so let's go and read. This is Exodus 21. And this is where it is the rubber meets the road. This is where all the controversy is. And now you're going to understand why the wicked hate the mishpat of Adonai. And why it is that even for myself, I'm telling you, it took me this amount of time. And I'm ashamed, O great King, that it has taken me this amount of time to finally do what it is that is right. To face my own fears of my own internal state of what I think I'm going to lose. But what does it profit a man? That's what I'm saying to you as well today. The opportunity to finally actually grab the covenant. And if we are successful in grabbing the covenant, we then finally get the blessing. And we get to return and be back with the king when he comes back. Right? To be in the kingdom. So anyway, so Exodus 21 starts off with verse 1 obviously. It says, now these are the mishpatim. Now these are the right rulings. Go and take your text, wherever it is that you're sitting. If you have been walking the Torah road for a while, or even for a year, you will have experienced that one of the Torah portions is actually called mishpatim. So we've read these rulings, but we've never asked ourselves the right questions. Right? Not only are these laws, which it is that are eternal, some of the laws can't be practiced today. However, Adonai is going to look at our heart state to say, is our heart state in rebellion? In our heart state, do we spurn the statutes and do we abhor the mishpatim? Your heart state has to be at shalom with the king in order for you to enter into the kingdom. Or to be accepted for the blood of Mashiach to mean anything for you. How will you be betrothed without accepting these things? You understand? Your actual betrothal is these things. So you can't be betrothed to him, and therefore when he comes, he will say, depart from me. And when he comes, you're not going to be able to then say, okay, I accept them now. You have to accept them before. Right? That's the reason why I know in the New Testament somewhere, I just need to find the text. I'll try and find it and put it up here. Where it is that it says there will come a time where it is that the good will be good and the evil will be evil, and you won't be able to change camps. And for all of us, I know a lot of us like sit here and think, oh, maybe by the time of the end of days, then I will do X, such and so. But that doesn't make any sense, because your end of days can be tomorrow. My end of days could be tomorrow. Right? And whatever it is that is within my heart is going to be that which it is that is recorded in Adonai's book, and I will receive the judgment. Okay? We have to understand this relationship with Adonai is not like any other human relationship. As human beings, we wear masks the whole time, and we are able to deceive each other. Right? Even within marriage, we're able to deceive each other. Intimate relationship, and people get shocked to find out, oh, did my wife actually do that? Or did she say that? Or my husband did that? Or did he say that? I never thought that was going to come. Right? Why? Because the person could wear a mask and fool you. However, with Adonai, every human being has a piece of his ruach, right? Or his neshama. It says the neshama of Elohim, which is like the breath of Elohim, is the candle. The neshama of Elohim is the candle of the body, and Adonai searches all the parts of the human being. Right? What does that mean? It means that this ruach, this air, wind that you breathe, that goes into your soul, into your blood, and oxygenates every single cell, that is the Spirit. It knows everything about you. It knows more about you than you know yourself. So it is impossible to fool the king. It is impossible. Right? We have to actually deal with these things, and we have to truly always be ripping our hearts open to say, is this really my state? Why? Because the human heart is deceitful. That's why Paul says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Okay, so let's go and read. This is where it says the rubber meets the road. This is where all the controversy is going to explode. Right? Exodus 21, 1 to 2. Now these are the mishpatim that you shall set before them. And here we go. First controversy. When you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th year he shall go out free for nothing. Right? So slavery. This is one of the mishpatim. We've been taught in the West that slavery is some evil thing, right? Something which it is that should never have happened, and it is, yes, evil, immoral. However, we see here in the text, Adonai says straight after the 10 commandments, right, the 10 words, the first thing Adonai says is, I'm going to address my desire, my will for my kingdom. And the first thing I'm addressing is slavery. When you buy a Hebrew slave. Okay, now for sure, within the text, it will tell us that the Hebrew slave is not like the slave that you buy from the Goyim, right? You can only hold him for 6 years. And after that, you have to set him free, and you treat him like a hired servant. However, guess what? There are other types of slaves which are not Hebrew slaves, and those people, Adonai says, are like your property, as in proper slavery, where you own a human being. And Adonai says this is how you're supposed to engage with them. So let's go and read the evidence for this. It's Leviticus 25 verse 44 to 46. As for your male and female slaves whom you may have, you may buy male and female slaves from amongst the nations that are around you. You may also buy from amongst the strangers who sojourn with you and their clans that are with you, who have been born in your land, and they may be your property. Right? So Adonai is saying that within his kingdom, Israel is permitted to buy male and female slaves from the people who live around them, and not only from the people who live around them, also from the Gentiles who live within the kingdom. And that these people who are bought as slaves are property. You may bequeath them to your sons after you to inherit as a possession forever. These are people who don't get let go after 6 years. They don't get let go at the Yovel either after 50 years. You may make slaves of them, but over your brothers, the people of Israel, aka the church, You shall not rule the holy nation and holy priesthood, one over the other ruthlessly. So the question is, does your soul abhor or despise Yehovah's Mishpat? Are you okay with slavery? Do you believe that slavery is moral? Right? And if we say that no, the New Testament came to give us some new way, we just went through all that. Right? The New Covenant says that the terms and the conditions of the New Covenant is the Torah, which is what it is that we just read. And in fact, Paul, when he's speaks and says that if you are a slave and you come to belief in the Mashiach, he says you will remain a slave. Why? Because Paul, rightfully as a Notri, a guarder of the covenant and a small branch, right? A small branch who is the imitator of the big branch, the Mashiach, who is going to do righteousness and justice, has to agree. He has to believe Moshe forever. The question is, do you? Do I? Right? And are you willing to stand and say, yes, slavery is moral because the great king in his word said that slavery is moral. It just needs to be practiced in this particular way. Right? If your soul abhors this mishpat and you say that this is disgusting and immoral, you need to understand you are calling the king disgusting and immoral. And who are these words? The word is Mashiach. You are therefore spitting at the very blood that you're hoping is going to save you. Right? These are the rules which it is that are going to be part of the kingdom, the 1,000-year reign of the Mashiach. Right? It says that the tzaddikim will have two-edged swords in their hands to bind the kings of the nations and to execute on them the mishpatim written. Right? Messiah in the 1,000-year reign, those who it is that managed to be part of the Hasidim, part of the saints, they are going to dominate the entire world and bring the world in subjugation to the Torah. This is one of the rules that are going to be in the kingdom. Have you ever asked yourself the question, do you want to be in the kingdom? If this is the terms and the conditions. I believe many people wouldn't even want to be in the kingdom. However, whatever reason why it is that you would choose to not be in the kingdom, I'm telling you today, after what is I saw in my experience of what is coming, what happens to the human soul after it is that you die, not in covenant with the king, it does not profit a man. Right? It profits a man to be humble and accept the master of the universe as your master. So that's the first one. Let's go to the next one. Exodus 21, 3-4, and continues. Speaking about the Hebrew slave. If he comes in single, he shall go out single. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out alone. Right? Now what does this mean? This means that as an Israelite or a Hebrew, you purchase your brother as a slave. He comes in alone, right? Or, yes, he comes in. And then you give him one of your slave women, which is an actual slave property, right? Not Israelite slave woman. A person from the Goyim, from the nations. And you give that person to him as a wife. Then for the 6 years, he has that woman as his wife and he gets kids or whatever the case may be. After the 6 years, when it's time for him to leave, Adonai says that he can go free, but the woman still belongs to the master, and so too do the children. Right? Now that, when I read that, it just blew my mind. Why? Because I was taught this idea of saying that, oh no, marriage is this, I don't know, covenantal thing that is like so great that surely Adonai is merciful and gracious and holy, and he understands the holiness of marriage, that he would then say, no, listen, if you came in as a slave, a Hebrew slave, which you employed for 6 years, that when this woman got married, it was her turn to go free. Adonai says, no, she doesn't go free. And in fact, what it is that's taking place there is that this man is actually breeding slave stock Right? He's used his Hebrew brother to increase his property. Adonai says, this is morality. So the question to you is, do you believe that this is morality or not? Or do you believe that the great king is immoral and your soul abhors the mishpat of Adonai? And like I said, I've wrestled with this for years. And my statement now, clearly before the Master and all his witnesses, Yehovah hu Elohim, and his ways are perfect, righteous, and good. And my perceptions are evil. And I hope that you'll be able to say the same. Let's continue. Exodus 21, 5-6, talking about the same Hebrew slave. But if the slave plainly says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him to Elohim, and he shall bring him to the door of the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall be his slave forever. Imagine that. Adonai says, if this man loves this woman, well, in fact, that's my messed up Western mind once again. He says, if this man loves the master, the wife, and the children, then he can go through this process, but he becomes a slave himself forever. That just seems totally unjust, right? From a Western perspective. However, like I was saying, Yehovah hu Elohim, who am I to say that the king is immoral? It's very interesting that the Torah says the order is to love the master, to love the wife, and to love the children. And why I was saying that my weights are still not correct is that I was saying if the man loves his wife and children. But you can see how that would be a massive mistake. If the man didn't love his master, but he loved the children, the wife and the children, and then he stayed because he loved the wife and the children, hated the master, can you imagine what type of life you'd have for 50 years? So Adonai is giving a hint or some counsel to say that that's not the right way to go. If you find yourself bound to your master, as in you love your master and you love the wife and you love the children, then this is the option which it is that you should take. Okay? But yes, these are the ways, these are the mishvatim of the great king. Does your soul abhor or despise Yehovah's ways? Let's move on from there. Even more controversial. Exodus 21, 7-9. Obviously, this is not the only mishvatim. What I'm trying to do here is to address the elephants in the room. So that's what I've been saying to Sarah for the past 13 years. If we can deal with the elephants in the room, right? If you can deal with the most difficult instructions, then everything after that is going to be easy, right? However, if we keep sweeping the elephants in the room under the carpet, then you're never ever going to actually qualify to get into the kingdom. Okay? To get in the kingdom, you must know that there are giants and there are cities fortified to heaven. You must agree to go on the mission impossible. And once it is that you've agreed, you are cognizant of what it means to take the kingdom, when you cross the Jordan and you get into the battle and you see this massive giant, you don't start like running away and saying, oh, you never told me told me that this is what the kingdom was. Okay? So there are many things which it is as Westerners we do not understand, especially because we were taught Christianity, as in modern Christianity, which, as we just saw, is its own thing, right? We've not been taught the truth. So there are many rulings, statutes that we don't understand and don't do. And we need to reconcile all these things. I'm just trying to point out the ones that I believe are the most challenging. Okay? All right. So, Exodus 21, 7-9. When a man sells his daughter as a slave. So we just pause there. And this one here, like this, like a knife into my heart, right? And I ask you your forgiveness, my king, because he knows what it is that is in my heart. And may it be that your will be done. Yes. And this is not to say that I want to sell my daughters. Obviously, that is not. I don't think any man who it is that was within the kingdom would want to carry this out. I don't think you want to sell yourself as a slave. You would do this if it is that you were in a certain position. Okay? So, yes. So before the master, Adonai, may you search my heart for sure. That if you're in that position, this is an option. This is a moral option for an Israelite man who is in a certain position financially. Okay? Now, it doesn't say that, but I believe that that's what it is that the reason would be for him to sell his daughter. I don't think that we just went around selling our daughters for financial gain. So anyway, is that moral? Right? Is it moral for a man to sell his daughter when he's in financial gain? And my reaction many years ago was to say this is the most defiled thing that a person could possibly do. Do everything else besides sell your daughter. But guess what? Adonai says this is morality. She shall not go out as the male slaves do. If she does not please a master who has designated her for himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has broken faith with her. If he designates her for his son, he shall deal with her as with a daughter. So again, I ask you, does your soul abhor or despise the mishpat of the great king? And if your answer is that you find this abominable, I'm saying to you, make shuvah. Repent, tear your heart open before the king and say, your ways are not my ways, but I accept your ways. May you remove my heart of stone and give me a heart of flesh. Right? And now we're going for the greatest controversy. This is the sacred cow of the Western world. This is the ultimate perch of the Queen of Heaven, the whore that rides the dragon. Right? So the next text, next verse, this is verse 10 of Exodus 21. If he takes another wife to himself, he shall not diminish her food, her clothing, or her marital rights. And if he does not do these three things for her, she shall go out for nothing without payment of money. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that whoever it is that bought this woman as a slave, if he designates her to himself as a wife, but she's a slave wife, so she's a lesser wife, like a concubine, almost like how it is that we have Zilpah and Bilhah, right? The servant girls of Leah and Rachel. And it says, if he takes another wife, what Adonai requires is that he will not diminish her food, her clothing, or her marital rights. What does this mean? Marital rights is her right to intimacy with her husband, her right to her sexual rights with her husband. So Adonai is commanding this man that if he takes another wife, that he must sleep with the first wife and he must sleep with the second wife. Right? Now, when I first heard this, I thought it was abominable. And Adonai, you know that was my experience. However, I now understand that it is not. It is Adonai's standards of morality. But the question is for you, do you find this abominable? Right? Does your soul abhor this mishpat of the great king? Let's continue with this one. Now, this one we're going to dive deep because I believe this is the sacred cow. This is the biggest obstacle for anyone in the modern world to get into the kingdom. Right? Why? Let's go through these ideas. So the first thing that we need to understand is Yehovah commanding this man to practice adultery. How can it possibly be that Adonai is commanding a man to sleep with the first wife and to sleep with the second wife? So all wives are going to have that right. All wives will have the right to food, to clothing, and to sex. Okay, so even if he takes a third, fourth wife, whatever the case may be, then Adonai is saying each wife has those rights, including the sexual right. So what we need to understand for us in the West today, why this is the biggest stumbling block. Lack of humility. Right? We think that the kingdom is Christian or like Catholic or something like that, Roman, Greek thought. No, our kingdom is ancient. Right? The church is there from the time of Yaakov. Right? The rulings given at Sinai are the actual standards of morality, not what we've been taught. And the unfortunate thing is, in the book of Revelations, and I believe that we're living in the last days, it shows us that there's only two types of women in the end. Right? Two types of women. The first one is the bride, the one who has been betrothed in righteousness and justice. In these ideas that we're just speaking about, slavery and polygyny, a man having more than one wife, and a lot of other stuff as well, which we'll go through some other things just now. Okay? There's this woman, the righteous woman, who it is that is standing on the moon, clothed in the light of the sun, and the 12 stars around her head. With the 12 stars, it's the 12 sons of Yaakov from his polygynous marriage, right, with his 4 wives. There's that woman. She loves the great king. She serves him with all her heart, soul, and strength. And the opposite of that is the whore riding the beast, right? Who it is that is doing all sorts of sexual immorality with the world. Okay? Now the question is, for us at this particular point, which do we truly believe to be immoral? I know that when I was in Christianity, what I was taught was to say that before you got married, right, this wasn't like a teaching of the church, but the understanding was, right, the general cultural understanding was, before you get married, you could have sex with as many people that you want, but once it is that you got married, then you were kind of required to be faithful to that one person. Well, from a man's perspective, faithful to that one woman, right? However, from a biblical perspective, that's not true. From a biblical perspective, you can't have sexual relationships with whatever amount of people and then get married. From a biblical perspective, it is almost as if once you have sex, you are married, right? We need to understand, from a biblical perspective, there is no word like marriage. There's no word like wife, right? In Ivrit, it just means the word wife is so-and-so's woman. And if there was any word for marriage, in fact, there is no word for marriage. It just says that, but it just doesn't say. You are in a covenant relationship, is what it is that we understand, right? So anyway, the Western understanding I was given was said that you should have as many sexual partners that you wanted to have. Then you would somehow make marriage with this one particular person. Then you were like locked into having a monogamous relationship with that person, but you could then have sex with other people as long as you're not caught, right? As I'm saying, it's not like a law that people teach. I think in the world, yes, it is like that, to say go and enjoy yourself. If you're not married, you're young, have fun, or whatever the case may be. But within the religious circles, I believe that the understanding is kind of that way, but not openly said in that particular manner. Okay? So that's immoral. Yet Adonai says, if you're going to have sexuality in a righteous way, you have to do it from a perspective as a man, where it is that if you do have sex with somebody, you have to first take responsibility, cover them as a husband, and then you can enjoy having sexual intimacy with that particular person. So anyway, there's only two types of women in the end. There's the one who it is that is betrothed in righteousness and justice, and there's the whore. Now the question is, which one do we want to belong to? I say we, because this picture of the woman is also a picture of the kingdom. Okay, so men and women in the kingdom are also understood to be feminine, both of us, right? Men and women are understood to be feminine. So I'm included in that picture, and the reason why I'm doing the teaching is that I'm saying to Adonai and to all the witnesses in the heavens and the earth that I refuse to be part of the whore. I'm going to be part of the woman which that is betrothed in righteousness and justice. I find it also fascinating that this book describes mankind as these two types of women, and guess where it is that men are, right, in the story, right? Where is it that men are? In the stomach of the righteous woman is the man-child. Now I know that this text is speaking about Messiah. However, I believe it's speaking about the time that we're living in. Right? The reason why Adonai says that he's looking for a man is that there are no men. Right? What are men? Men are those who it is that walk in righteousness and justice. In fact, King David says, I should just read it quickly. King David says to Shlomo, says something fascinating. Right, so this is 1 Kings 2, 1 to 3. And David's time to die drew near. He commanded Shlomo his son, saying, I am about to go the way of all the earth. Be strong and show yourself a man, and keep the charge of Yehovah your Elohim, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes and his commandments and his mishpatim and his testimonies, as is written in the Torah of Moshe, that you may prosper in all that you do and wherever it is that you turn. Right, so Adonai says, I'm looking for a man, and the reason why he says that is because there is no man. The only man that's there is in the womb of the righteous woman. And ladies, I'm telling you that in this time, you have this choice. As in actual females, you have the choice. Which female are you? Which woman are you? Are you the righteous one who is pregnant with the man, or are you the whore? Right? Now, what is the fascinating play? I believe that the righteous woman is going to birth the man, right? And she's going to nurture the man. And once the man gets to maturity, she's going to allow the man to sit on the throne, and she will say, Adonai. Whereas the whore wants to kill the man. And this is where it is that we find ourselves today in the modern world. Right? Masculinity is under attack. Why? Because it's the same demon that understands in Ivrit. The word for male is the Hebrew word zachar. What does zachar means? It means to act and speak on behalf of, to remember. And the word for female is nekeba, if I'm saying it correctly. And guess what that means? It means the one who is to be pierced. The one who is to be pierced, the one who it is with, the one with the hole, is what it is that the meaning actually is. So what does this mean? The duty of men is to act and speak on behalf of the covenant. This is why it is that when Pharaoh was trying to kill Israel, what did he say? He said, throw all the boys into the river, right? Kill all the boys and let the girls live. Why? Because the feminine is understood to be like the land, the hole in which the seed is put into. And therefore, whatever seed you put into the land is that which it is that is going to grow. So if you can kill the seed which is passed on via the male, then you can kill the kingdom. Okay? So ladies, you gotta ask yourselves this great opportunity that you have. Who are you going to be? Are you going to birth righteous seed, or are you going to try and destroy the seed? Now this seed, which is also Messiah, is going to do righteousness and justice. Are you willing to submit to the man who is going to do righteousness and justice? Yes, in the world where it is that we live in today, women are very much empowered, far more empowered than men, right? And for sure, for my own personal experience, myself and Sarah, one of the greatest challenges was to navigate this change in our lives once it is that we came to Torah knowledge. Why? Because before that, coming out of the world, I was brought up in a home where it is that my mother was the leader of the home. because my dad had a mental handicap and stuff like that. So anyway, my mom was the strong leader of the home, and therefore I gravitated towards that. So when I found Sarah, she was a strong leader, head girl of a school, amazing go and get type of person, right? So I was happy to be in the background and allow her to control where it is that our lives are going. Until Adonai woke me up to the Torah to say that that's not what it is that he requires. Then there had to be this change, and it was a birth. And guess what? Sarah had to choose whether she was going to cut herself off or cut me off or go through the birthing pain of birthing me. And hallelujah, up until this point, she has been birthing me, right? And now I am coming out as the man who is taking up my cross to be able to follow after the Messiah. And she's following in pursuit to say, yes, she wants to be the woman who it is that is clothed with the sun standing on the moon. Okay? And each one of you that are watching this, women, you have that decision to make. And for us as men, my brothers, we have to start making the changes and take our position. Adonai is looking for men who will stand in the gap. What is the gap? The gap is in a wall. What is the wall? A woman. What is the woman? The kingdom. Right? The world is saying that it's giving women rights, but it's not true. It's actually destroying women. Right? It's destroying women. Why? Because women are not functioning in the way they were designed by the Master to function. When you are not functioning in the way that the Master designed you to function, you're actually being abused. And this is the reason why it is that, what do they say? I think it's like a crazy statistic of like 50% of the women in the Western world are on antidepressants. How can that possibly be if women are the most empowered they've ever been? Right? And why are men so dysfunctional today? Because men are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to lead. They're the ones who are supposed to act and speak on behalf of the covenant. So anyway, let's move on. So with regards to Yehovah saying that a man must sleep with the first wife and the second wife and every other wife that he adds to his home, is Yehovah commanding adultery? God forbid, right? We have a misunderstanding. In Ivrit, the word for adultery is na'af, right? Strong Concordance number H5003. And that's what it is that it means. To commit adultery, figuratively, to apostatize. Adulterer, adulteress, commit or committing adultery. Woman that breaks wedlock. Okay? The next definition. To commit adultery, usually of a man, always with the wife of another. Right? So what's this telling us? It's telling us that the men who wrote these concordances understood that the Hebrew definition of adultery is a woman who breaks her covenant relationship. She breaks the terms and the conditions of a covenant. So it is a married woman with any man, whether the man is unmarried or married. That is adultery. However, for a man who it is that is married, if he has marriages with more women and therefore has sex with more women, as long as he's in marriage with those women, he is not committing adultery. Okay, this is the actual witness that the text gives us. How do we see this? We see this where it is that Yehovah describes himself as having two wives. Okay, this is Ezekiel 23. So Ezekiel 23, 1-4. It says that the word of Yehovah came to me, Son of man, there were two women, the daughters of one mother. They played the whore in Mitzrayim. They played the whore in their youth. There their breasts were pressed and their virgin bosoms handled. Okay, so here Adonai is saying that these two women that we're speaking about from Jeremiah 31 in the New Covenant, Hebrews 8 and Jeremiah 33, some would think to say that the two women only came about in the time of Jeremiah, or whatever the case may be. No, here Adonai is telling us that no, the two women were there from the time of Mitzrayim, when we were in Egypt. I would go and say that it's even beyond that, right? But anyway, they played the whore, they had the bosoms handled. Oholah was the name of the elder, and Oholibah was the name of her sister. They became mine. and they bore sons and daughters. As for their names, Oholah is Samaria, and Oholibah is Yerushalayim. Okay, they're talking about the northern and southern kingdoms. So let's continue and read the definition of adultery again. Ezekiel 23, 36 to 37. And Jehovah said to me, Son of man, will you judge Oholah and Oholibah? Declare to them their abominations, for they have committed adultery. Okay, so here Adonai says that they've committed adultery. They, being two women married to one man, he doesn't say that I committed adultery by having these two wives. He says that they committed adultery. Why? Because the blood is on their hands. With their idols they have committed adultery, and they have even offered up to them for food the children whom they had borne to me. So here Adonai is telling us to say that though he's got these two women who he is intimate with because they bear children, that him having intimacy with both these women is not adultery. But when these women, married women, go out to get other Elohim, then that now is considered adultery. So Yehovah has two wives, right? Oholah, which is Samaria, the house of Israel, and Oholibah, which is Yerushalayim, or the house of Yehudah. These are the same two women on the new covenant marriage contract. Now we need to grab this idea, okay? Jeremiah 31, 31 to 32. I know that we read it, but let's read it again. Behold, the days are coming, declares Yehovah, when I'll make a new covenant with the house of Israel, Oholah, and with the house of Yehudah, Oholibah, not like the covenant that I made with their fathers on the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim, my covenant that they broke, though I was their husband, declares Yehovah. Right? So what does this mean? It means that the new covenant, or all the covenants, not only the new covenant, but the new covenant specifically, I'm talking to us, which is I believe in Yeshua as Mashiach. The new covenant specifically is a polygynous marriage document. It's a document between a husband with two wives. Right? This new covenant is made in the blood of Messiah. And this is the covenant which it is that we are saying we are part of. Right? The house of Israel, the lost sheep, who think themselves Gentiles, the prodigal son who is returning home, and the Yahudi, the Jews, who it is that accept the Torah. These are the two houses. Okay? It's not one or the other. And unfortunately, for some time, Leah and Rachel, spiritually now, as in their descendants, have been trying to make as if they're the only one who is married to Yehovah. The Yahudi will tell you, even from the time of the book of Acts, they will say, no, if you want to come into the covenant, you must become one of us, because we are the only wife of the great king. When you come to Christianity will say the same thing. Oh no, you guys are lost. We are the only ones which is that accept the Messiah, who are the wife of the great king. And guess what? Both those positions are wrong. There are two wives, each with covenant with the great king. Each in covenant with the great king, ratified by the blood of Mashiach, with the same terms and conditions. Okay, this is what the Messiah actually speaks about with regards to the covenant and his blood. This is Luke 22:20. And likewise, the cup after they had eaten, saying, this cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood. So the question is, if we hate Yehovah's mishvat with regards to polygyny, then how are we going to be part of the new covenant? We simply cannot. Okay, let's see. King David, the man after Yehovah's own heart. How many wives did he have? So here we see a list of King David's wives, right? We got Michael, we got Abigail, we got Noam, we got Ma'akah, we got Hagith, Abital, Iglah, and then we got Saul's wives, right? Which we don't know how many those were, which Yehovah gifted to King David. We're going to go through that just now. And then we get Bathsheba. Right? So the thing is, what I want to point out is that all these other wives before Bathsheba, David is never ever condemned of committing adultery. In fact, having more than one wife, he is walking in the image of Jehovah. Right? He's not only walking in the image of Jehovah, he's walking in the image of his father Abraham. Walking in the image of his father Yitzhak, it's most likely that Yitzhak had more than one wife. There's a hint to it in the text where it says that in the blessing and the curse given to Esau and Yaakov, he says he will rule over his brothers. Right? Yet there's only Yaakov and Esau mentioned. But could it be that the other brothers are from other wives? Most possibly. Yaakov obviously had 4 wives. Right? And many of the other great tzaddikim, Moshe, Caleb, etc., etc. So anyway, King David also had multiple wives, walking in the line of all these other great men. 2 Samuel 12, 8 to 10. So Nathan comes to rebuke King David after he's taken Bathsheba. And that's why he says, I gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your bosom. Alright, so pause there. So because of King David's righteousness, Adonai blesses him with the kingdom and gives him the wives of Shaul into his bosom. Right? This word bosom is the same in Deuteronomy 13, where it says that it speaks about your wife, and it says that if the wife who is in your bosom, it says if that wife tells you not to serve Jehovah, that you should actually turn that wife over to the judges, and that the instruction to destroy that person, for that person to be put on trial and killed, is what it is that you should do. Right? So this idea of the bosom, it means the wife that you're being intimate with. So Adonai says, I gave you Saul's wives for you to be intimate with. And I gave you the house of Israel and of Yehudah. And if this were too little, I would have given you as much more. Imagine that. Adonai is not saying that was enough. He says, if it was too little, I've given you more. Why have you despised the word of Jehovah? What did he do to despise the Jehovah? To do what is evil in his sight. And you struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and have taken his wife to be your wife, and have killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from your house, because you have despised me, and you have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. Okay, so what do we learn then? Adonai says to King David that I gave you the wives of Saul, right, as a blessing. He says, I would have given you much more. He says, but now you despised my words because you took another man's wife and you killed this man. And then he says, now the punishment is that the sword is never going to leave your home. So the destruction that we see coming into King David's life is not because King David had multiple wives, right? The destruction comes because he committed adultery and committed murder. That's the reason why it is that King David had destruction in his life. Can we move on from there? How do we actually understand this mishpat to make sure that we actually able to do it and we don't have that terrible experience of Yahweh Mashiach say, depart from me, I know you not. Right? So this is the understanding. Everyone within the kingdom cannot abhor or spurn to push away any mishpat of the great king. In fact, any commandment of the great king. Right? However, today we're speaking about, at this particular point, we're speaking about the idea of polygyny. Right? Now, I believe that this is the biggest giant. This is the biggest obstacle. This is the sacred calf. This is the golden calf, the sacred cow of the Western mind. And everyone in the world is basically Western in their minds today. Right? So no one in the kingdom can abhor polygyny. It simply is something which is that can't happen. If it does, it means that you have broken the covenant. Okay? All in the kingdom, the church, must support, guard, and defend polygyny as a righteous form of marriage. Okay? Because that's what it is that the text actually says. Now, the thing is, this is not a command that Yehovah is saying that every single man in the kingdom needs to have more than one wife. Right? Don't get me wrong. That's not what it is that it is. Adonai has put this idea of marriage, or is given the gift of marriage, and you can have one wife or you can have multiple wives. It's up to you to make the decision as the man each individual man. You must make up your decision. The only issue is, why did you make the decision that you made? Okay, so if you had to take multiple wives and the idea was because of desire, I don't think that that's against Abba's Torah. I think that that's fine. If you made the decision to say that you're going to have one wife, and the reason why you made the decision is because you are afraid of this wife, right? Then that's a massive problem. Why? Because that wife has now become your Elohim, your God. Right? If you make the decision of saying, I'm going to have one wife because you know what? My business, my community is going to reject me and my business is going to fail, and therefore I will choose to rather have one wife so that I can save my business or my name within my community. Then again, what is the profit of man? To gain the entire world but to lose his soul. Right? Why? Because nothing else in this world is allowed to have our fear. Why? Because fear is worship. Okay? You worship that which it is that you fear. Deuteronomy 10 verse 12. And now Israel, what does Yehovah your Elohim require of you? But to fear Yehovah your Elohim and to walk in his ways. Right? We are commanded to fear him and nothing else. That's why it is that though the giants are terrifying and the cities fortified to heaven are terrifying, he says you rather fear me than that. Or you should fear me rather than that. Right? To walk in his ways. We've been discussing what the ways are. Tzedakah ve'mishvat, polygyny being one of them. To love him, to serve him. What is to love him? To obey his commandments. To serve Yehovah your Elohim, which means to walk in Torah with all your heart and with all your soul. Right? This idea of fear and not standing up for or doing, establishing righteousness and justice because of fear is the very same reason why it is that we are told in the New Testament, the 2 John 1 verse 7, for many deceivers have gone out into the world, those who do not confess the coming of Yeshua, Mashiach, in the flesh. Such a one is the deceiver and the anti-Mashiach. Right? So I've heard this text used many times in reference to our Jewish brothers, the Orthodox Yahudi of today, who reject Yeshua or Jesus as the Mashiach. Right? And people will use this text saying that, you see, that means that these people are the Antichrist and therefore they're not saved and have no part in the kingdom. And it's a misunderstanding, right? As we just went through the text, the issue why the Yahudi reject Yeshua today is not the same reason that they rejected him in the first century. The reason why they reject the Mashiach today is legitimate. Because Christianity is teaching of a Mashiach who breaks the covenant. And just according to the instructions in the covenant, Deuteronomy 13, to say, if anyone comes and tell you to divert from believing what it is that I told you via Moshe, that person should be killed. This is the reason why they reject Yeshua. However, in the first century, the reason was that they were afraid. They were afraid to lose their positions in society. They were afraid for their businesses. You must know that these people lived, the people the text is speaking about, lived in the time when Mashiach walked. Right? This is like not even probably the first generation after it is that Mashiach walked, or at the same time. Right? So they maybe by first hand actually witnessed the miracles of Mashiach. They saw all the discussions. It says that everybody was in waiting for the arrival of the Mashiach. Everyone was in expectation. And this man comes and he's doing all these great, crazy miracles. Everyone knew of him, right? They had teachers with such wisdom and understanding beyond our comprehension today, as in even the modern Yahudi do not know what it is that was known. There's so much information that's been lost. For instance, Techelet, right, the blue cord. Nobody knows what that is today. In the first century, it was well known what that was. People wore techelet. Why is it important? Because the scripture says that by wearing tzitzit with techelet, you actually are able to remember to keep the commandments, which means without the techelet, you can't. What does that mean? It means that if you don't keep the covenant, if you don't keep the laws, you've broken the covenant, therefore you can't have the blessings. And for sure, we're 2,000 years later without true techelet, and we are 2,000 years of exile because we don't know we don't truly understand what the commandments are. At that time, they were fully understood. Right? You had the disciples going out and teaching about Mashiach. These are men who sat for 3.5 years, or whatever that time period was, at the seat or the feet of the Word Himself. Can you imagine what it is that He explained to them with regards to Torah and to regards to Himself? Now we have witness of Him doing that to the two on the road, where it is that they don't recognize Him, and then He starts to expound to them. Right? You have extremely educated people like Paul. I believe that Paul was possibly the next in line as the Nasi of the Sanhedrin, as the chief judge of the Sanhedrin. These guys had never seen Christianity as in Catholicism, right? This idea to say that you divorced from the covenant. They spoke Ivrit. They knew all the secrets of the Torah, all the numerologies, all the pictographs. It was well known. And therefore, when someone in that time was shown to say, you know what, this man is the Mashiach because of all this evidence, right? And then after seeing all that evidence, the person said, no, I'm not going to accept him as Mashiach, because that means I'm going to lose my place in the synagogue. My business is going to fail. My family are going to reject me. That's the reason why it is that they are called anti-Messiah, if you rejected the fact that Yeshua has come into the flesh, come in the flesh. And likewise today, rejecting truth is the issue, right? So with regards to polygyny, for all of us, and especially for the men, I'm speaking to the men now, if you choose to say that you will not stand up to say that polygyny is righteous, perfect and good, righteous, perfect and good option, and you will not practice it because you fear your community or your wife, whatever the case may be, then you are no different to those people that the text is referring to. No difference to an anti-Messiah, a deceiver. Who is that? The Satan. And indeed, Messiah said that in his days, to say that you are the children of Satan. Why? Because you're not doing that which is that Abraham did, which is to do what? To stand and walk in righteousness and justice. Okay? So I hope that you understand this. Like I was saying earlier on, there is no way to you can't fake this with the king. Right? It is the duty of a husband to lead his wife into the kingdom. This is why it is that we're told that the husband must bathe the wife in the word and present her spotless to the master. It is our duty. Now, what does that mean? It means that we have to make sure that we ourselves are clean before the king and that our families are clean before the king. If we fail to do this, it means that we're actually going to be sending our wives and our families straight to hell. Does that mean that we love them, or does that mean that we hate them? Right? And the truth of the answer is, it means that we hate them. Right? Because if we loved them, then we would want to give them the gift of eternal life. If we loved ourselves, we'd want to give ourselves the gift of eternal life. Right? What does it profit a man to gain whatever it is that you may think that you're gaining if you are going to lose your very soul? Ladies, if your husband actually stands up for righteousness and justice, and you are so blessed to actually have a man who wants to walk after the king and has the ability to walk you into the kingdom, right? Because the man who it is that refuses to stand for righteousness and justice can't walk you into the kingdom, right? If you don't support that man, you are cutting off your own chance of getting into the kingdom. Right now, for a woman, with regards to the instructions of polygyny, for a man, he can choose if he's going to have one wife or multiple wives, but he has to stand and say that polygyny is righteous. Okay? For all the women in the kingdom, unfortunately, you don't have a chance. Or you don't have a choice. Not a chance. You don't have a choice. To be a woman inside the kingdom, the only choice that you have is which man you're going to marry. Right? So a man brings the marriage covenant to the woman, and the woman decides, do I want this man, do I not want this man? But once you get into the marriage, you are married to that particular man, and you have no right to stop him from marrying anyone else. This is what the Torah law, I'm trying to explain you what the Torah law is. Okay? Just to be part of the kingdom, you have to be at shalom with the fact of saying that your husband is permitted to have multiple wives. And just as we are in the kingdom, where it is that we're going out and we speak about Mashiach to get more people to come into the kingdom, that's the attitude which it is that you're supposed to actually have. Right? And I can show you that that's the attitude that you're supposed to have, because we can see that with our mothers. Right? Our mothers with regards to Yaakov. And we see Rachel and Leah being married to our father Yaakov, right? And we see that they have a fight. The fight is to do with the husband. And we've been all taught in the West to say that they were fighting over their husband because they had sexual jealousy over each other. And that's absolute nonsense. It's because we have a fleshly understanding of the text and we are not spiritual. And I'm not saying that flesh is wrong. I'm the first one to say that pleasure and sexuality is a good thing. I'm saying that a wrong understanding, when I say using the word flesh, I'm saying that a wrong understanding, Westerners, when they look at that story, have a wrong understanding of what's going on. What's going on is that these women understand that there was a special son who was promised to Chava, to Eve, right? And they were in a competition to see who was going to birth the gates of heaven. Right? If they were sexually jealous of each other and that was the reason for the fight, why would they then say, oh, you know what? Here's my maid. Take my maid as wife as well. And then the other one say, okay, here's my other maid. Take my maid as wife as well. So you add more wives because you are jealous of the two of you. You have sexual jealousy between the two of you. So the solution is add two more wives to the situation? No. You can see what the text is actually telling us is that they're striving to birth these sons. Who are these sons? They are the gates of heaven. Right? Our perception or understanding, I tell you, is rotten to the core. It's the reason why it is that the whore is sitting on this beast, and it says that she's sexually perverse. And the woman who does righteousness and justice is the one which it is that is the righteous one. The righteous one is the one who it is that is practicing these things that is in the text, and the sexually perverse is the one who it is that doesn't understand these things. Right? A woman who it is that believes that she has the right to be jealous over her husband. There is no such a right. Right? There is nowhere in the text where it is that it says that Israel is jealous of Jehovah. We may be jealous of his words to say that we want to protect his words, but we can't be jealous over him, right? He is entitled as the husband to have as many wives as he desires. From a minimum, we understand that he has the house of Israel and the house of Yehuda. However, the book of Isaiah, I think it's 17, and I'll put the text up here. It says that in the end, it will be Israel, which is the house of Yehuda, the house of Israel, Egypt and Assyria, four, who are all the wives of the great king. And what's that picture? The picture of the house of Israel is Rachel. The picture of the house of Yehuda is Leah. I believe personally that Bilhah is Assyria and that Zilpah is Egypt. Right? As women, spiritually and physically, we have no right to jealousy over our husbands. This is the reason why it is in the Torah, there is only a test for the jealous husband. Right? You're all familiar with it. Where it is the husband suspects his wife of adultery and he takes her to the temple. This is Numbers 5. And she goes through this whole process. And she's either proven to have committed adultery or she's vindicated. There is no such a test like that for her husband. Why? Because no woman has the right to have jealousy over a husband. Why? Because jealousy is related to ownership. Women do not own their husbands. However, husbands own their wives. This is why Messiah says, I bought you with a price. I own you. But we do not own him. Right? We need to understand, polygyny is the highest and most sacred form of marriage within the kingdom. How can I prove this beyond a shadow of a doubt? Because of the heavenly Jerusalem. And we need to understand, the earthly kingdom is modeled off of the heavenly kingdom. Right? There's a saying that says, as above, so below. This is a true biblical concept. Right? The heavenly Yerushalayim, the great king's home, is designed in a particular way. And guess who designed the heavenly Yerushalayim? The great king himself. Why did he design it in the way that he did? Because that was his desire. Right? No one came, and there was no architect who said, I'm going to force you to live in this particular space. Why is that important for us to understand? Because the heavenly Yerushalayim has 4 walls and 12 gates. Right? It's a golden cube, as it's described in the book of Revelation, which is also fascinating. Anyway, 4 walls and 12 gates. Now, why is that interesting? It is interesting because the 4 walls and the 12 gates actually represent the polygynous family of Yaakov, the kingdom, Israel. Right? The text tells us that walls are like women. Songs of Solomon 8-9. We have a little sister, and she hath no breasts. What shall we do for our sister in the day when she shall be spoken for? If she be a wall, we will build upon her a palace of silver. Psalms 144 verse 12. May our sons in their youth be like plants full grown. May our daughters be like corner pillars cut for the building of a palace. And we see the description of the heavenly Yerushalayim. 4 walls, the wives of Yaakov. You have Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah, and the 12 gates, the 12 sons from those 4 wives. That's the entry point into the heavenly Yerushalayim. Right? This is the master of the universe's home. This is where it is that he feels at home. That's such a weak way of explaining it. This is his desired habitation. Right? This is where he feels the most comfortable. This is the very reason why when we come out of Mitzrayim, he causes us to camp in that same structure. Right? We go into the wilderness, and for sure you have the tabernacle in the middle, and then to the east you have Leah, to the south you have Zilpah, to the west you have Rachel, and to the north you have Bilhah. Right? The 3 tribes representing each of those different directions are of the sons of the wives in those particular directions. Okay, this is the reason why it is that the Ruach HaKodesh says, how good are your tents, Yaakov, your Mishkan, Israel. Imagine that. Right? And the person which is that actually said this blessing is Balaam. It says that Balaam has this Ruach of Elohim has come on Balaam, and his eyes are open, and he now sees the vision of El Shaddai. Right? He sees clearly. Balaam's telling us to say, I see clearly. Then he says what? Matovu, how good are your tents, O Yaakov, your Mishkan Israel. Now, what are the tents of Yaakov? The only place it is that we see the tents of Yaakov, when we're looking in the Torah, are the tents of his wives. So the thing is, how will you walk into the heavenly Yerushalayim? Right? How will you walk through one of the 12 gates? How will you walk into a city that's based on the polygynous family of Yaakov when your soul abhors the very idea? I mean, when we go into the actual text, the last text with regards to this idea I'm going to look at quickly is Revelations 21 verse 2. Okay, and this is what it is that it says, and I saw the Kadosh city, the holy city, the new Yerushalayim, coming down out of Shemaim, out of heaven, from Elohim, from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Right? This description that I'm giving you here of the 4 walls and the 12 gates is the polygynous family of our father Yaakov. This is Yehovah's desired dwelling place. This polygynous environment is his home. I hope we can get this into our heads, right? Or yes, I hope, just meditate on that. How will you serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob if your soul abhors the very idea of their families? Right? Especially when you speak about our fathers, I mean, they are the ones who it is that are the actual covenant holders. Right? Yehovah is their Elohim. If we're going to sit at their tables, right, they're going to have the highest tables of honor, and then if we're going to sit in their family tents, how are we going to do so if we abhor their cultural or family structure? I mean, just, think of it for a second. I always say to people, how is it possible that if Abraham had to come with his wives and concubines, would he be welcome in your Shabbat group, or would he be welcome in your church? Right? If Yaakov pitched up with his 4 wives and his 12 sons, would they be welcome in your synagogue group or in your Shabbat Torah group? And if they wouldn't be welcome, then what's the point of whatever it is that you're doing? There is no point at all, right? So, lastly, with regards to the idea of polygyny, one of the arguments people will say is to say that in the beginning it was not so. That if Adonai wanted, he would have made Adam with more than one wife. And unfortunately, like I'm pointing out, the heavenly Yerushalayim existed before Adam existed. Okay, so the 12 gates and the 4 walls were there from the beginning of time, which means that polygyny came first in the mind of the great king. Right? It also means that even Yaakov himself didn't have the choice, because it was already set out how many sons he was going to have, how many wives he was going to have. Okay? Anyway, polygyny came first. But even if you want to say that Adam himself started off with one wife, you can't really hold to that argument. In fact, you can't hold to the argument, because in the beginning Adam was made naked as well. And we know that we're never ever going to be naked again. We're going to be clothed. Right? In the beginning, Adam was put into a garden, and he lived in a garden. He was not to live in a city. But we know for us that that's not ever going to happen, because we're going to live in a city. Right? We know that in the beginning, Adam was commanded to eat only vegetables. But we know that that is not going to happen in the kingdom, because we've got the text, we've got the menu for the wedding supper. And the wedding supper has meat on the menu. Okay? So all those arguments with regards to it wasn't so in the beginning just simply don't hold any water. Yes, we agree. That's how it is. Adonai started off mankind. Adonai revealed the first amount of Torah, and then he progressively revealed the rest of his will. Okay, so we didn't know that the heavenly Yerushalayim existed at that particular time. We did not know, well, from the text, from us reading the text, I'm not saying Adam didn't know. Maybe Adam knew the heavenly Yerushalayim. But when we read in the text, we don't know that there's a heavenly Yerushalayim with 12 gates, and Adam is made. However, this information is revealed in the end. Okay? So, now that we've got the full revelation, or at the point when we got the full revelation of the Torah, which is the time of Moshe, that's when it is that the full understanding of what Adonai has created is fully presented to mankind. Okay? And that's where it is that we get the understandings from. That's the eternal standard of morality. Okay? That which it is that cannot be added to or subtracted from. That which it is that the church was commanded to believe. Okay? Okay, and lastly, with regards to the difficult mishpatim, Exodus 21 verse 15. Whoever strikes his father and his mother shall be put to death. And Exodus 21 verse 17. Whoever curses his father and his mother shall be put to death. So how's that? Does your soul abhor that mishpat, that a child should be put to death for striking their parent or cursing their parent? And I must say, in this world, that would be called immorality. However, Elohim forbid that may come off of my lips, and that may come off of your lips. Today, we must choose. And I am saying, as for me and my house, we will serve Jehovah. So I hope that this teaching was challenging for those of you who it is that are truly seeking. I pray that you got some answers. And for those of you who it is that it may have brought a lot of turmoil, I am excited for you. Right? Go over the teaching again. Go through all the points and see, is it really so? And if it is so, I will leave you with the words of the Mashiach. What does it profit a man to gain all sorts of stuff and yet to lose his soul? From my experience and from Sarah's experience, I can tell you, it doesn't profit at all. And I look forward, I ask the great King that he may allow us to faithfully walk in the way, and that he may give his barakah, his blessing. Not only that we may enjoy his blessing, but most importantly, that the Goyim, that the nations may know Yehovah Kitov, that Yehovah is good, and that we may be able to turn around and say, like King David said, taste and see that Yehovah is good. I believe the only reason why it is that we are all afraid to do what it is that the Torah requires, to actually take on the covenant, is that we don't have anyone in our peripheral vision, no one in front of us who it is that is walking in the covenant and has the blessing, and therefore we are all afraid. However, we are saying to Adonai that we will trust him and that we're going to fight and run out to meet the giants, to meet the fortified cities up to heaven. And that we believe that he will go before us and that we will get the kingdom. And if it is not so, and it is that I should perish and that she should perish before it is that we get the kingdom, may it be that we've run out and that our brothers and sisters may run next to us, and that if they get the kingdom, hallelujah, all honor and praise to the great King. All right. I think that will be all. Blessings. Shalom.